Paris, France, August the 31st, 1997. At the back door of the Ritz Hotel, 4 people get into a black Mercedes sedan. One of those people is the most famous woman in the world, Princess Diana. Often described as the world's most photographed woman, Princess Diana lived and died through the camera, and ultimately the public's lens.
Princess Diana is very good at manipulating the media, and it may well be that she did it like this to show that she could do her own thing.
I hope you can find it in your hearts to understand and to give me the time and space that has been lacking in recent years.
In her whirlwind life and premature death, the paparazzi were never far behind.
Hello, good morning. Well, the big day has arrived. In 4 hours' time, Charles Philip Arthur George Mountbatten Windsor marries Diana Frances Spencer, and Britain and the world will celebrate the wedding of the Prince and Princess of Wales. In this programme, we're going to capture every moment of the preparation, the procession, the service and the celebrations. The celebration began last night.
An estimated 750 million people worldwide tuned into the 1981 royal wedding of Prince Charles and Lady Diana Spencer. The 20-year-old suddenly was expected to meet the high demands of the British monarchy, alongside becoming an international star. Naive and woefully unprepared for both aspects of her new life, Diana struggled with her new role as Princess of Wales. The young princess almost immediately garnered the attention of the public. The shy nursery teacher was relentlessly pursued by the press.
She now faced possibly the most daunting initiation test for would-be members of the royal family, ordeal by the media. Her flat came under siege. She was followed wherever she went.
Do you find it a very daunting experience that yesterday you were a nanny looking after children, now you're about to marry the Prince of Wales, and one day you would, in all likelihood, be Queen? It's a tremendous change for someone, if I may say, of 19 to make all of a sudden, the transition.
It is, but I've had a small run-up to it all in the last 6 months. And next to Prince Charles and I can't go wrong. He's there with me.
She's very good-natured, and it doesn't worry her. Publicity doesn't worry her, as you've seen from the way she's dealt with the press. She's taken it all in her stride. I think she'll always be like that. She's very practical, Diana, very down-to-earth, very practical, very good housewife.
It was relentless. You know, there wasn't. I don't think there was a day apart from you know, a very few days when we managed to escape the loitering paparazzi.
How well are you coping with all the press attention?
Well, as you can see, you can tell.
Are you bearing up with it quite well, though? Because it must be quite a strain with all of us after you.
Well, it is, naturally.
She was very, very young, and she'd had no experience of life. And although she'd lived on the Sandringham estate and knew the royal family, she didn't really know the royal family. I think she thought it was all going to be sort of wonderful. So she'd been disappointed from the very beginning. She was living on a dream, really.
And then, in a moment, provided the great cliché scene of happy couple riding towards the sunset. The problem now is whether the press will leave the couple alone. It's probable that the trusty Brits will comply with the royal edict and go home today. But the rest of the Europeans massed here are not going to be so kind. It could be that the Prince and Princess of Wales are in for an uncomfortable weekend. Anthony Carthew, ITN, in Liechtenstein.
In the early days, Diana's light was small, but it began to shine brighter and brighter and brighter, and it was a sort of a Star is Born situation.
The princess's popularity soon turned into adulation. A new word began to appear in the media's vocabulary, Di-mania. On a trip to America, the crowds neared hysteria, screaming for the princess wherever she went.
Yeah, I mean, seeing royalty that close up, I mean, they'd actually, take the time out to come and talk to us. It's just unbelievable. God, it was great. I used the whole roll of film. It was worth it, I swear.
After 5 years of marriage, it was becoming more evident, both publicly and privately, that the relationship between Diana and Charles was beginning to disintegrate. Rumours of affairs were rife, and Diana's increasing popularity was thought to be concerning to Charles and the palace.
The theme of this second week has really been the princess's rapidly growing popularity. There's been plenty of physical contact, and the children now seem to have rewritten the rules of the walkabout, or at least made it clear that the rules don't apply to them. They can go anywhere. Sometimes they hunt in packs, zeroing in on the target with their bouquets. The end product is always the same, masses and masses of flowers.
Well, Charles was so used to having all the attention on him, which it had been since he was born, he didn't like the idea that they walked down a street, say, when they were doing a royal engagement, and the crowd were calling, "Diana, Diana." So he felt surplus.
The Di-mania continued. Prince Charles was proud of his wife, but it was now becoming obvious that the crowds wanted to see her more than him. It's been suggested that the prince was caught completely off his guard by this, and that his pride became mixed with a twinge of jealousy. He joked about it in public.
I haven't yet worked out a method of splitting my wife in half. She can do both sides.
And he referred to his wife's popularity again at a banquet in New Zealand.
And I've come to the conclusion that really it would have been far easier to have had two wives. To have covered both sides of the street. And I could have walked down the middle, directing the operation.
In 1992, leaked telephone conversations confirmed infidelity between the once fairy tale couple. The palace advised Charles and Diana to separate to save the royal family's diminishing reputation.
It has turned out to be an annus horribilis.
Prime Minister John Major announced in November 1992 that the couple had separated amicably. Christened by her devotees as the People's Princess and given the cold shoulder by the royal family, Diana soon realized that she could use the press that hounded her and the public that consumed it to her advantage.
The most daunting aspect was the media attention, because my husband and I, we were told when we got engaged that the media would go quietly, and it didn't. And then when we were married, they said it would go quietly, and it didn't. And then it started to focus very much on me. And I seemed to be on the front of a newspaper every single day, which is an isolating experience. And the higher the media place you, is the bigger the drop. And I was very aware of that.
I think she's told her side of the story, and she's actually said it herself rather than it being written down. You actually come from her own mouth. So, you know, it's got...
After a string of sensational and infamous tabloid news stories and interviews, some supposedly orchestrated by Diana, the Prince and Princess of Wales's divorce was at last agreed to be finalised in 1996.
The Princess of Wales has agreed to Prince Charles's request for a divorce. A spokeswoman for the Princess said that Diana will continue to be involved in all
Kensington Palace, the Princess was said to be deeply upset at making and declaring the decision to end the marriage. It could happen swiftly, meaning a leap year divorce.
When I started my public life 12 years ago, I understood the media might be interested in what I did. I realized then their attention would inevitably focus on both our private and public lives. But I was not aware of how overwhelming that attention would become. Nor the extent to which it would affect both my public duties and my personal life in a manner that's been hard to bear.
Next week, and they're here now to perform it for us. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.
There's fresh controversy surrounding Princess Diana this lunchtime after newspaper reports linking her with Dodi Fayed, the son of the Harrods.
By 1997, Diana was still the focus of the world's attention. Her freedom from the royal family and new relationships were of great interest to the public.
There are 62 love letters in all written by Diana to the former army major during their 5-year romance. They're now at Kensington Palace.
What my cards tell me about Dodi and Diana is there's a lot of infatuation in love right now. They're very zhuzhed up about each other, very...
Diana's new lover, Dodi Fayed, was an Egyptian film producer and the son of billionaire Mohammed Al Fayed.
For British royal watchers, it has been another day afloat off the coast of Saint-Tropez. Their focus, Mohammed Al Fayed's villa, where the princess and her sons are holiday guests. Today, she walked down onto the small stretch of beach, appearing comfortable with the media attention. For half an hour, she chatted to her security men as the foreign paparazzi, well within sight, snapped away, and British photographers cruised by in the Mediterranean heat. It was here where, according to their reports, the princess held her impromptu and floating press conference. Today, they reacted with surprise that she is now complaining about the media's oppressive presence.
If you're going to choose one place in the world where the paparazzi actually set up home here for the whole summer, they're here for 3 months, she just never thought about it properly at all. And she was going to get caught within minutes, and that's precisely what happened. I think then to complain that the press are around too much is faintly ridiculous.
Most of the paparazzi following the princess here are foreign photographers, which must cast considerable doubt on whether she will ever be able to escape the limelight, even if, as reported, she takes her son's advice and decides to live abroad. Yet for now, those decisions can wait. This is holiday time to sail on board Al Fayed's luxury yacht. Time to enjoy the Riviera sun with Princes William and Harry. This afternoon, she boarded a 150-foot cruiser, also belonging to the Harrods boss, to sail away from Saint-Tropez, to slip away from the media glare.
Dodi Fayed. 3 British papers have paid £500,000 for them. Other publications worldwide are eagerly doing deals. Jason Fraser's a British photojournalist handling sales of the pictures taken by an Italian cameraman off Sardinia.
What you have here is a woman who 3 weeks ago told the world's press, "You're in for a big surprise." She invited us, as good as, to take a set of pictures like this. She knew it was coming. They were taken in a very public place, in a playground for the rich and famous.
It's suggested the photographer himself may make £3 million. Is that possible?
I think that's probably a bit of an exaggeration, but I think he'll do very well out of it, certainly.
You know, Diana had a very good working relationship with the media. She accepted, I think reluctantly at the beginning, look, I'm saddled with this. You know, what's the point? I can't fight it. I've got to stay with it. And that's how it was. And I think by and large, the national press were very good to Diana in their reporting and then their sort of photographic journalism. I don't really have a problem with that, because without that coverage, you know, the royal family become less and less unnoticed. And, you know, so, you know, Diana, while she was critical on occasions, accepted, you know, with some reluctance, but at the same time, I think quite enjoyed, by and large, the very positive publicity she got. And we dealt with it.
So she was a barrel load of contradictions.
Since the start of speculation about a new romance, tabloid photographers have laid siege to the Park Lane home of Dodi Fayed. Late last night, the arrival of a car similar to that owned by the Princess of Wales led to reports that the two were sharing an intimate meal prior to her departure for Bosnia. Trays of pre-prepared food were taken up to the 5th floor apartment. Frustratingly for the photographers, there was no opportunity to see the diners, although their own activities were constantly monitored by security cameras which protect this exclusive part of Mayfair. The absence of photographic evidence did not stop a new round of speculation in this morning's papers, including claims from alleged friends and known confidants that this time the stories are true.
Well, I was speaking to one of Dodi's father's closest associates last night, who said that one date does not make a wedding. Well, so far they've enjoyed a summer romance, clearly. We have the photographs, and they've enjoyed a quiet dinner together, à deux. So it seems to be moving along.
Well, I mean, I knew Dodi, and he was probably one of the most charming people you could ever meet. And he's also rather cool. Had an American accent, beautifully dressed, and he treated Diana like the princess she was. Nobody else had treated her like that.
Diana and Dodi met long before 1997. They met at various events, film premieres, at the polo, at the horse show, the sort of places that people of their kind would meet at.
Guest of her friend Mohammed Al Fayed, the boss of Harrods, a very controversial figure in the recent political Cash for Questions affair. Her decision to join him here in Saint-Tropez to enjoy the use of his yacht has again allowed her critics to question the princess's judgment.
I think she liked him very much. I don't know if she was in love with him, but she was in love with the idea of him, because she immediately saw, with her power and Dodi's power through his father, they could do great things together. So he fitted in to her blueprint for her future. And she wanted to go more into the areas of not sort of going and cutting ribbons at hospitals, but she wanted to actually be out in the field doing things. And that was her raison d'etre. And she was really excited about the future and what she realised that she had the power to change things. And that really was exciting to her.
It's always been my concern to touch people with leprosy, trying to show in a simple action that they are not reviled, nor are we repulsed. HIV does not make people dangerous to know, so you can shake their hands and give them a hug. Heaven knows they need it. We must recognise that not all who are HIV positive are ill. In fact, many of them are healthier than you and I. And we must stop the landmines if we can. Because I'm not a political figure, I am a humanitarian figure. And always have been, and always will be.
Just weeks after her controversial holiday with the Al Fayed family, which was widely discussed in the tabloids, it's emerged that Princess Diana has enjoyed a second holiday, this time with Mohammed Al Fayed's son.
So it was the first really free relationship she'd had since her marriage had broken down. It's the first time she could actually be out with someone. And she was having a ball. Diana could be several people in one day. And I think one of the reasons that people are so fascinated with her still is that she was a different person with different people. I take that to be part of her insecurity because she wanted to please the person she was talking to. She wanted to tell them what they wanted to hear. And so she was always different, so she was always fascinating.
Paul Burrell was constantly at Diana's side, one moment maintaining the distance of a man in service, the next joking with the boss.
I said to the princess, "When are you coming home?" "I'm coming home on Sunday, Paul. I'm just bored. I'm on this boat. It's freezing cold downstairs. It's boiling hot on deck. I'm sending these pictures out and nobody's coming back to me. I'm having no communication. I need to come home. But the only way home is on the Harrods jet. The only way I can get home is via Paris."
Saturday, August the 30th, 1997. Diana and Dodi travelled to Paris and planned to stay overnight at the Ritz Hotel, owned by Dodi's father. Even though the princess was divorced from Prince Charles, she was still entitled to the same level of security as other members of the royal family. Diana chose not to take advantage of their security agents and was being looked after by members of the Al Fayed security team, led by Trevor Rees-Jones. August the 30th, 1997, 9:30 p.m. Dodi Al Fayed's plans to take the princess for a romantic meal are ruined as the couple are followed by paparazzi. The couple decided to retreat to a location the paparazzi could not penetrate, the Ritz Hotel. the couple decided to leave the Ritz and head to an apartment owned by Mohammed Al Fayed, a short distance from the hotel. "12:20 a.m. Henri Paul, the deputy head of security at the Ritz Hotel, had been instructed to drive the hired Mercedes-Benz S280 to elude the paparazzi. A decoy vehicle left the Ritz from the main entrance. Diana and Dodi then departed from the hotel's rear entrance, heading for the apartment. Diana and Dodi were the rear passengers. Trevor Rhys-Jones and Henri Paul occupied the front seats. At this point, the paparazzi had caught up with the Mercedes. Henri Paul drove faster to get away from the photographers. Just before Paul headed into the Alma tunnel, he swerved slightly to avoid a slower car, but grazes the vehicle. The car began to spin out of control.
Diana, Princess of Wales, has been seriously injured in a car accident in Paris. Her companion, the Harrods heir Dodi Al Fayed, has been killed. The driver of the princess's car is also understood to be dead.
"12:23 a.m. At the speed of around 65 miles per hour, the car slammed into the 13th concrete column inside the Alma tunnel. As the victims lay in the wrecked car, the trailing paparazzi rushed to help, while others took pictures. Fayed had been sitting in the left rear seat and appeared to be dead. Fire officers were still trying to resurrect him when he was pronounced dead by a doctor at 1:32 a.m. Henri Paul was declared dead on removal from the wreckage. Still conscious, Trevor Rhys-Jones had suffered multiple serious facial injuries. 12:30 a.m. The first police patrol arrived on the scene. "1 a.m. Diana was removed from the car. She then went into cardiac arrest. Following external cardiopulmonary resuscitation, her heart started beating again. "1:18 a.m. She was moved to the ambulance, left the scene at 1:41 a.m. and arrived at the hospital at 2:06 a.m. "4 a.m. Princess Diana was pronounced dead. She was just 36 years old.
Nearly there. Communications with Paris fallen down, but just to confirm the news that Diana, Princess of Wales, has died in a car accident in Paris, which also killed her companion, Dodi Fayed.
As we know, it isn't unusual for Diana to be smothered by paparazzi. It has now been 16 years since her engagement to Prince Charles. So why had this time been fatal?
There's no dispute the photographers were pursuing the Princess of Wales car on Saturday night. The key questions still being asked are how close were they at the time of the accident? Did they cause the driver to lose control?
At the scene, police impounded the motorbikes of paparazzi photographers allegedly pursuing the princess's car in a high-speed chase. 7 men were arrested.
The photographers claimed there'd been some banter outside the Ritz, with Dodi Fayed's driver or bodyguard telling the paparazzi they'd not be able to catch him. Another lawyer appealed for his client to be judged on facts, not emotion.
There is an enormous public emotion, which is very understandable, but the answer to this very large emotion cannot be an unfair treatment, cannot be an excessive severity of the justice.
In the aftermath of the fatal crash, it was discovered that none of the passengers was wearing a seatbelt. A French investigation concluded that Paul was legally drunk.
In their first official announcement, detectives investigating Saturday's fatal crash have said the driver of the limousine in which the Princess of Wales and Dodi Fayed were travelling had been drinking that night. The amount of alcohol in his blood well above the legal limit.
A post-mortem has shown that Henry Paul was 3 times over the legal alcohol limit, the equivalent of drinking 8 glasses of wine or more. He was not a professional driver, but the deputy head of security at the Ritz Hotel.
In 2008, a British coroner's jury found that Diana and Fayed were unlawfully killed because of the actions of Paul and pursuing paparazzi.
Newspapers, for example, in this country, I know were rather relieved in a terrible way when they heard that Henri Paul had been found to have been over the limit and had gone so fast, and thought perhaps that lets the paparazzi off the hook, but of course it doesn't.
All the media, whether it's magazines, whether it's newspapers, whether it's television, whether it's radio, we have all contributed to the climate in which this happened, and we must all think more carefully in the future.
Hello has on occasion used paparazzi photos. The latest issue, 650,000 copies, due out tomorrow, has been shredded because of an article about Diana and Dodi Al-Fayed and marriage. Hello is bringing out a revised edition. The print run has been increased to 1 million. The debate about the intrusiveness of the paparazzi is growing. Unlike France, we don't have the legal right to stop photographers from publishing pictures of us taken in public places.
I think what happened yesterday in Paris was a shocking event, and shocking in very many senses of the word. I think it will shock the country into really arguing about privacy law in a way which I don't think it has been argued about previously.
This case in France happened in a country where they already have very tough privacy laws, and these couldn't protect the Princess of Wales from the attention of the paparazzi. Frankly, I don't think one is too optimistic that law here would change very much.
I think when people are grieving and they're confused, that they always look for a scapegoat, or they look for someone to blame, and in this case they blame the press, and I think that's much too simplistic a reaction. The press did not kill Diana. Diana had a very interesting and symbiotic relationship with the press, and she was very much in collusion with them much of the time. So I just don't think that you can make a statement like that.
I think one got to think of the responsibility of not only reporters and photographers, but editors and proprietors, but also, and this is often ignored, the responsibility of those who buy the newspapers and those who watch them, because that is what they're produced for. If people didn't want to have this voyeurism, if you like, and didn't enjoy it, they wouldn't buy the papers, and so the papers wouldn't be full of these things. So we've all got a responsibility.
In death, as in life, Diana was helping to sell newspapers.
The public's adoration of the late princess had never been more visible.
She will always be in our thoughts and forever in our hearts. And that's how I see her.
Just sorrow. Just sorrow and wish we'd told before we loved her.
I just can't believe she's gone.
Huge crowds of mourners laid flowers.
On a sea of flowers, 1 million bouquets have now been laid at London's palaces.
Her funeral at Westminster Abbey drew approximately 3 million people.
During the service, the people listened transfixed, the music and words as precious as their memories of Diana. Many fought with tears during the traditional parts of the service. But it was Elton John who really touched Diana's people.
May you have grown in our hearts, you were the great place to say, where lives were torn apart. Goodbye, this road from the country lost, without your soul, who missed the wings of your compassion, more than you will ever know. And it seems to me you lived your life like a candle in the wind, never fading with the sunset when the rain sets in. Your footsteps will always follow me along England's greenest fields, with candles burned out long before. Your legend never will.
In both life and death, Diana Spencer was front page news. Her funeral was the biggest story in the world.
Still can't believe it, because they talk about her being dead, and then you see her alive on the television. You still can't believe it.
It is a tribute to her level-headedness and strength that despite the most bizarre life imaginable after her childhood, she remained intact, true to herself. There is no doubt that she was looking for a new direction in her life at this time. She talked endlessly of getting away from England, mainly because of the treatment that she received at the hands of the newspapers. I don't think she ever understood why her genuinely good intentions were sneered at by the media, why there appeared to be a permanent quest on their behalf to bring her down. It is baffling. My own and only explanation is that genuine goodness is threatening to those at the opposite end of the moral spectrum. It is a point to remember that of all the ironies about Diana, perhaps the greatest was this: a girl given the name of the ancient goddess of hunting was, in the end, the most hunted person of the modern age.
No one who knew Diana will ever forget her. Millions of others who never met her, but felt they knew her, will remember her. I, for one, believe there are lessons to be drawn from her life and from the extraordinary and moving reaction to her death.
She was the people's princess. And that's how she will stay, how she will remain in our hearts and in our memories forever.
The outpouring of love was just overwhelming, really.
She was a unique person. She touched so many people's lives. She took away people's fear. She showed them love. Everybody who came into contact with her loved her.
We were promised, Nick, a unique funeral, and that's exactly what we got.
Oh, yes. Everybody must have been deeply moved. The tone was so right, Trevor, from absolutely everybody, from young children delightedly tossing flowers onto the hearse on that final journey, to the thousands upon thousands on the streets crying and applauding.
It was a funeral that involved everybody, from the humblest in the land to the highest in the land. It went without a hitch, and it was so absolutely appropriate.
Mark, can you put words to the scene you have just witnessed?
It's extraordinarily difficult, isn't it? What I can say is a great grieving tide of humanity here seemed to hold their breath collectively as the hearse went by. There was barely a sound, just the flash of flashbulbs going off. I think as you can still see some of the twinkling candles in the background as a back.
The Princess of Wales was a new kind of royal. She carried out her duties with elegance and style, just like other members of the royal family. But there was a difference. She wasn't stuffy, responding to people naturally, and the people took her to their hearts. She was happy to show the kind of human side that other royals kept hidden, giving the monarchy a refreshing new profile throughout the world.
Diana had a deeply complicated relationship with the press. She would often use it to her advantage to forge her own narrative.
She needed to do something. She needed to put her side of the story for us to hear. You know, I think it's right that she's done it.
She was an absolute wizard at the photo opportunity and making herself either, you know, she could look anything. And the photographers wanted her to sit in front of the Taj Mahal, and she realized that this Taj Mahal was built as a symbol of love, and there she was, all on her own. And she posed beautifully with her legs folded, and she looked very wistful, and she'd never looked more lonely. The fact that Charles was doing another engagement in another area was irrelevant. It looked like she was there in front of the symbol of love all on her own. So it sent out a message to the world: I am all on my own.
However, the press can also be seen as a main contributing factor to her untimely death.
At the scene, police impounded the motorbikes of paparazzi photographers allegedly pursuing the princess's car in a high-speed chase. 7 men were arrested.
She's on the front of every paper, ain't she? Italian papers, Dutch papers, even Bosnian papers she's on the front of.
Like most celebrity icons who passed prematurely, Diana is frozen in time. She's immortalized by the endless footage captured by the cameras that followed her. And to this day, mythologized by tabloid stories. And reenactments of her life in popular TV and film.
I love Diana, love her. Can't get tired of her. Just because she's so classic and timeless, and they're never, you know, stories aren't going to run out about her. Whether true or false, it's still, you know, still amazing to hear different sides. And you'll never know the real story, but to get closer to her, even though she's not here with us anymore, is something amazing.
Ultimately, Diana is remembered as the beautiful and beloved people's princess, who was taken far too soon.
Alice Diana of love. What a wonderful epitaph.